Ahoy! I am generally not a big fan of doing farms in New World that a lot of other people are doing as well. Typically I find them inefficient, and also I prefer doing farms that include at least a little bit of combat. But this particular farm doesn't always fulfill these requirements and is still so efficient that I felt like it's worth talking about. Before we do that, a quick segue to something else that involves combat, today's sponsor. Today's video is sponsored by Paragon the Overprime, a free-to-play, team-based, third-person shooter action MOBA that also has plenty of melee characters if you're not into shooters. While the game comes with the standard layout of 3 lanes, a jungle, and 5 players per team, there is also a major twist. There are multiple portals on the map that can frequently be used and, for example, allow you to teleport from duo straight to solo for a quick and easy gank. In combination with the short path between lanes and the option to sprint while out of combat, this makes for very action-packed and high-speed gameplay. Being built on Unreal Engine 4, Paragon the Overprime also looks extremely nice and runs very smooth. And if you like theory crafting, there are tons of items that can massively change how your character plays and feels. If this got you interested in the game, Paragon the Overprime is now available on both Steam and Epic Games. You can find the link in the description. By the way, since I've last talked about it, they've also made significant revisions to their privacy policy, and you get a bunch of free characters if you install the game before January 19th. And now back to the farm. Now, if you played New World for a bit, I don't need to explain to you what chest runs are. There are multiple of them in Brimstone Sands, and again, by themselves I think they are not super efficient. You're basically gambling on the hope that you will get a Golden Scarab, which you can sell for a decent amount of gold, or the off chance that you'll get another rare item. You also have to keep in mind that if you're specifically looking for the named items that were removed from mobs in Brimstone Sands, you will not find them on chest runs that revolve around the glyph chests, but only around the acid chests. But there's one particular ancient glyph run that I would highly recommend participating in if you see it pop up in the recruitment chat. And that is Helio or Heliopolis and Solarium Khepri. Since these are right next to each other, they're usually done together anyways. This run is extremely short. If it's a large group, you usually don't take much longer than 10 minutes, maybe 15 minutes if your group is a little bit smaller. And on every run so far, I've gotten something that I can either sell for a good amount of gold, or personally use and want it anyways. That is because due to a new addition this patch, we are basically triple dipping here. With this patch, they added smelting gear that increases your smelting accumulation to various mobs in Helio as well as Solarium Khepri. Most of these pieces go for higher end 4-digit sums, so you can definitely make some good money with them. Or alternatively, you can use them to make more money yourself by crafting more Asmo. The second benefit is the chance to get Golden Scarabs, and since you're doing a lot of chests in a very quick succession, your chance of getting one is relatively high. The third thing you can get from here are a bunch of very good named items, as well as some other useful drops. I'm going to show you which mobs on the route drop which loot, and also the route itself in case you don't know it and no one on your server is doing these ones and you are the one who has to lead them. After clearing the first mobs that guard the first chest, we want to run up to the left, and the first named mob we come in contact with there is Montukhal of the Shield. We have a loot pool here from New World Database, and the first interesting drop is Greaves of the Montukhal. This one is a heavy leg piece with Strength, Elemental Aversion, Corrupted Ward, and Freedom. Definitely a solid piece to start out with. I've talked about the combination of Corrupted Ward and Elemental Aversion actually being illegal and very effective in the past already. So especially if you don't want to get the one from the winter conversions, this is a nice drop to have. He also drops Shield of the Montukhal. This one, nice pun on the name, but is not that great in itself in my opinion. Lightning Shield Ward is nice, and Mortal Energy is interesting in so far that normally it cannot roll on round shields, but in combination with Keen it's just not a particularly interesting shield when it comes to the perks. What's probably more interesting for most of you is that he is the guy who drops the Smelter's Pants. When we follow the path further behind him, up the stairs, then we come across Harmonious Nebet Duhetshara. Its first drop is Heart of Duhetshara, which is an int ring with fire damage, refreshing evasion, and siphoning, in my opinion not particularly valuable. The second drop is a Life Staff, Petra Adarexia, with full focus, Chain Void, refreshing, and blessed. Not particularly good because of Chain Void and refreshing, not refreshing move. So we drop down again to pick up one of the chests, and then make our way back up to meet Thunder Anteos Atumnem. This guy can only be spawned during the daytime and requires someone who has all glyphs in order to activate the spawn. He does, however, have a massive loot pool. First of all, he has Tooth of the Devourer, which comes with 29 dexterity, keenly empowered, vicious and mortal power. Not exactly the best greatsword because it has vicious but no bane, so not that useful for both PvP or PvE. The Whirled Encircler is an okay life staff if you don't have anything better yet, I suppose. Full focus, blessed and refreshing move is nice, but then it has keenly fortified, so don't really need that on a life staff. Sundrop is an int earring with focus, mana toast and refreshing. Most mages don't really have mana issues to an extent that they would need something like that. And likewise, most healers probably don't have any use for Eye of Ra, which comes with Transient Recovery, Lost Bane and Fortifying Sacred. Bolt of Flame is an int fire staff with refreshing Pillar of Fire, refreshing and keen speed, also not particularly great. What is absolutely great from this guy are the Smelter shoes, and these are usually worth a fair bit more because obviously you have to spawn him, and he only spawns during the daytime, so if you're doing the run during the nighttime, you get Risen Storm Tefcon Sunut instead. While this guy doesn't drop any smelter gear, their name drop's actually a lot better. Doombrainer is a musket that's probably mostly a novelty for the name, keenly empowered and Vorpal, but then along with accelerating traps, I don't think people want that often. But Scale of Shash-Neshen is fantastic for any serious tank. Full con, Nature Shield Ward, sturdy and hated. This is absolutely best in slot for nature mutations. Eater of Souls is an interesting Void Gauntlet because it comes with both keenly empowered and keenly jagged, illegal combination, along with Mortal Refreshment. Bit of an unusual one because you don't really have something like Vicious, but the combination of these illegal perks might honestly be better, at least in some circumstances. Ripple is, I would say, an okay greatsword, comes with thwarting strikes and refreshing move, as well as slowing rupture on the weapon, so if you really want to slow your enemies, good starting point. Moondisk Vice, on the other hand, is odd because it has kind on the weapon, and I don't think anyone really wants that, along with Mortal Refreshment and Unending Thaw. If we go up a little bit further, all the way to the top, then you have two mobs here. The first one of them is Neitquzah of the Shadow. Doesn't drop any smelter gear, but it drops Weaver of Wars, a musket with keen, refreshing evasion and plague crits, very weird. But also Heart of Neitquzah, which comes with focus, void damage, leeching and crippling. For a very niche Void Blade or Void Gauntlet build, this could actually be interesting. The other guy here is Kindred Shu Maahebgal. One of his items is Threefold Stormgore, a dex spear with Chain Lightning, Enfeebling Skewer and Keenly Empowered. Honestly, not bad at all. Enfeebling Skewer on the weapon is actually pretty good, so is Keenly Empowered. And Chain Lightning, not quite attunement, but still very much decent. So this one is definitely one to look out for. And the other one many of you will be familiar with, especially after the last patch, that is Heart of Maahebgal. Strength, Hardy, Keen Awareness, and now Poisoning, no longer slash damage. If we now drop down to the level below these guys, then we get to Mountain Colossus Sacre Gap. You definitely don't want to skip this guy. Here's Crag of Nirt, which is okay, it's a con strength hammer with Transient Strikes, Leeching Path of Destiny and Keenly Fortified. Not terrible, unfortunately not Thwarting Strikes though. And he has Girdle of Gab, which is a con shield with slash shield, ward, sturdy and accelerated resolve. Actually very interesting for PvP if tower shields ever become a thing in PvP again, really. And then last but not least, he also has the Smelter's Mitts. Now we move over to essentially the opposite side of where the shield guy was and get to Batheqet of the Cudgel. This guy is absolutely brimming with good drops and may actually be worth farming even outside of this. The first drop is Warrior's Energy. This is a strength, evasive, refreshing toast and nimble earring. This is as good as it gets for a PvE earring that you can actually farm. I know evasive is not the best option when it comes to threat reduction, but is the best option that is available if you're specifically looking to farm an option that provides you with strength. For some reason this thing absolutely doesn't drop for me, but congrats if you get it. What I did get, however, is Batheqet's Cudgel, an extremely strong warhammer with Ancient Bane, Thwarting Strikes and Sundering Shockwave. Basically best in slot in many situations against Ancients. Absolutely worth having for dungeon runs. Along with that, he also happens to drop the Smelter Smock, which is usually going a fair bit cheaper because more people are farming him for the other items anyways, and this is kind of a byproduct. But if we walk up these stairs behind Batheqet, then we find another boss, and that is Anhurawak the Proud. It drops Slayer of Skies, a dex bow with Chain Void, refreshing penetrating shot, and accuracy. Don't think that's particularly interesting. It also drops Heart of Anhurawak though, which comes with thrust damage, as well as Keen Awareness, which is something apparently they don't really want in the game anymore, but they kinda do with this item, and also Bloodletting. This means this is a particularly interesting ring if you're going for a dex build where you don't really need Hearty, that includes a Rapier for the thrust damage as well as the bleed. And obviously it's equally nice for the spear, which also has thrust damage and bleeds. This also happens to drop the Vengeful Fisherman's Hood, which is actually very good because it's Lucky Waters 3 and Fishing Colossus 3, for those of you who care about fishing, like me. After that we once again want to drop down to the side, to the other more or less hidden chest, and then we make our way out to Solarium Khepri. Now I have been unlucky with Solarium Khepri's spawns, he's just always already cleared when I get there, so I just get the chests. But if you actually manage to farm him, you can get quite a few interesting things. When I first looked at this guy, I actually overlooked this item, but this one isn't even bad. Charioteer's Boots is heavy full con and comes with Shirking Fortification, Elemental Aversion, and Refreshing. This doesn't have Resolve, but it's not quite as important in heavy, and Shirking Fortification and Elemental Aversion is normally an illegal combination. So you can get a lot of high damage mitigation through this, which is definitely something worth considering, and which is unfortunate because it means I have to actually hope that this guy is up and have to farm a bit. Duskrunners I already talked about, provide you with Int, Refreshing Evasion, Freedom, and Shirking Energy. It's unusual insofar that you can get Shirking Energy on your shoes here, but otherwise the attribute mix is not the best, so more of a filler until you get something better. You also can get the Sunrise Spear, which is Dex, Chain Lightning, Refreshing, Sunring Javelin, not particularly interesting. But he drops the last piece of the Smelter set, which is the Smelter's Headgear. Along with that, both the chests around him and he himself drop the Sunglyph Stone. So all in all, there are a lot of reasons to participate in a Helio run, even if you're normally not the type to do chest runs, like me. In the next days, I'm going to talk about some other games that recently released, if you're interested in that. And of course, we have some more New World stuff coming up as well, some more guide-related stuff, and so on. So if you'd like to see that, please consider subscribing and clicking the bell. Thanks for watching. SLOTH out.